so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. This is Lori LeBay, your host and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks. Before we get into our show today, I always just like to tell our audience a little bit about us because we're always getting new listeners. And so this will just take a moment. Bottom line, Alzheimer's Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we believe one of the easiest ways to do that is just having these everyday conversations like we do here on Alzheimer's Speaks. You see, we talk to people who have dementia. We speak to their care partners, both family and professional. We speak to researchers, advocates, musicians, authors, movie directors, you name it. Everyone has a voice, and we want to hear from you. So if you think you might have a story to tell or have some ideas that might help somebody else, please, contact me through alzheimersspeaks.com, and there's a big contact button up in the header. Just click on that, and you can shoot me an email, and I'd love to have a conversation and learn a little bit more about you and your story. This disease it's a whopper out there, and the numbers are growing every day, and we truly believe that collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle. And we know that it's working thanks to each and every one of you. You see your likes, your clicks, your shares, even though it just takes a second, they're powerful. And when you liked and clicked and shared our information here at Alzheimer's Speaks, you're pushing information out to people in your own sphere who may need this information. People who you might not even know are dealing with this or know of someone who's dealing with it. And the more we can get information comfortable to people, the more likely they're going to crack it open and read it and put it to use. So I encourage you to continue to do that. And I have to say thank you because of your sharing. You also got us recognized as the #1 influencer online by ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And we were also just recently this fall recognized by Maria Shriver as an architect of change for humanity. And again, those titles we share with you because we surely did not do that alone. So again, know those seconds count and know that your social media is really powerful. And we encourage you to continue to, when you see information on dementia and caregiving, share it. And again, not just ours, but everybody's. That's the best and easiest way, I think, for us to raise awareness and empower people to feel more comfortable in terms of coming out of the closet and living well with this disease. I also want to give a shout out to a couple of our partners, the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation out in Arizona. They just do a wonderful job with kind of a holistic side of things. So if you're looking for meditation, exercise, diet, they are the go-to people. So check them out. The Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Center. Another one of our colleagues is the Call Alert Center, and they do a wonderful job when somebody goes missing, and they can put together a social media kind of hot sheet. You can sign your loved one up for this for very reasonable cost. Plus, you can get a discount through us. There's a promo code and stuff listed, and just utilize that. Be prepared because it once it happens, everything's frazzled. Trying to find pictures, trying to figure out, how tall somebody is. Those things you think would be easily at hand, but they're not. Our brains turn to mush, and our hearts are hurting, and panic sets in. So, for under $15 a month, or not a month, a year, you can be prepared, and they can shoot this information out when you need it within 10 minutes. And they work with the police. It's a pretty cool system. Now, today we are really lucky because we have a young gentleman with us whose heart is pretty big, and his name is Sam Rinke, and he has been in senior living for only 6 years. But when I've talked with him, I've just been really impressed with his essence and his knowledge and his true compassion that comes out. He talks about really loving his job, and one of the best things is when he can just sit down with families and talk about his how the company he works for, Gable Pines, can really meet their needs, and seeing them happy as a result in terms of moving into a senior community. So we're going to talk with him today about life care services and their memory care as a whole. So welcome today, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I got to meet you when I did one of the screenings of his neighbor Phil out at your place, and I was just so impressed. And then I found out I knew his mom, and then I wasn't surprised at all because Robin is just a little powerhouse in the industry. And so he definitely has those genes.
Yes, naturally.
Now, Sam, can you tell us, I always ask pretty much every listener or every guest this for our listener, have you personally been touched by dementia in your own circle, family and friends?
I've had, it's nothing actually the disease itself. So none of my actually family members, direct relatives, have up to this point had any, but what's happening right now, and just recently we're seeing some changes in my wife's family with her grandfather. All of her other grandparents unfortunately passed away up to this point, but Grandpa Sam coincidentally has the same name as me. Anyway, so we're kind of going through that a little bit. He's transitioned to a memory care community, or the community that he's in. He's transitioned into the memory care neighborhood there, and so we've been kind of getting to be a part of that. And having my perspective on it's really made a difference, I think, being able to talk to my wife about it and kind of just share with her things that I experience on a daily basis, and what I've talked to families that go through that whole situation.
Well, that's nice. One of the things that I know that in my own family, my brothers didn't always value my opinion or my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever find that, in your family situation? Because I think that's a common thing that a lot of care partners talk about. It's like, hey, I'm the one, feet hitting the ground, feet running here, and the one dealing with everything, but nobody wants to really take my opinion and value it.
Absolutely. That's a good question. And I've actually had some really great conversations with my mother-in-law. She's been very open with me about her struggles, concerns. She obviously has other sisters that are, having similar feelings and emotions around the whole situation. So she's actually talked to me every time. We have a pretty good relationship with my in-laws, and so it's been really nice being able to sit down and talk with them. Mainly, obviously, her and really share with her my, I wouldn't say expertise, but my experiences. Like I said, sitting down with families and obviously being in and out of a lot of different memory care communities and seeing, what works, what doesn't, and just being able to, obviously, resources like you, talking to people and being able to share what I've learned along the way. Obviously, it's only been 6 years, but being around it so often, she's come to me several times, so it's been nice to be able to talk about that whole situation with her.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that personal side. I'm going to give a plug just for our dementia chats, the webinars where I interview people with dementia. Our last one was about how they want to be communicated with versus what professionals say on how they want to be communicated with. But we have lots of video interviews, and families find them really helpful to hear from somebody with dementia. And if a person is in their earlier stages, a lot of times it helps them as well. With that process.
Absolutely.
But enough of that. We're here to talk about you and Gable Pines. And why don't you tell us what you think makes Gable Pines unique?
Well, Gable Pines is fairly new to the Twin Cities. Obviously, that's just the name. Who I work for is Life Care Services, and we manage it. And so this is my first time being a part of a brand new community that was built from the ground up, and being there from the get-go when it was literally just studs. And what I've kind of always said all along, when we slowly began to build the management team, it consists of between 5 and 8 managers in the community itself. was we have a really great opportunity here to start fresh and really create a culture not only in the community but for the residents and our staff, and to get it right from the get-go. And oftentimes when you join other communities that have been open for a while, sometimes you find yourself trying to connect with the other managers and create that team environment again. So I feel like we've really done a great job in that. And the thing that's really unique too, that from my experience, this doesn't happen everywhere, but every single person that comes into our community as far as staffing goes, that doesn't matter if they're a housekeeper or if they're on the management team or if they're a caregiver or they're a cook, everyone goes through our Heartfelt Connections memory care training. We value the training. We see it as extremely important for everybody on our team and in the community to understand the basics of dementia, what it consists of, the different types that are out there, obviously the well-known ones, but we just really try to educate them as much as we can, because oftentimes you have people coming in that really don't know what it is in some cases, or just think it's memory loss and really have no educational background on it. Or really don't know what to do if they came across a resident who was having an episode or some type of symptom from the disease. So it's really neat that we do that. I think we take the time. It's a whole 2-day course that we do, and we pay them to go through that. And so that's a unique perspective that Gable Pines has underneath the umbrella of LCS, which I think really can set us apart in a lot of areas.
Well, and even just the name of the company, Life Care Services, I mean, to me, that's a mission statement in and of itself, versus just a name, which, it sounds like there's a foundation of true conscious caring in the process there, which is nice. Now, is the Heartfelt Connections program, is that something that Gable Pines developed themselves, or
there was
services?
The company itself, there was a number of people in the company that put a lot of research forth into it and really built it from the ground up. It's really just built around the individual. We strive to really create success stories, one small victory at a time, with the individuals that we have in our neighborhoods. So what we really do, that's another thing that's unique about us, is before somebody moves into memory care, what we do is we sit down with the family. Usually the actual resident isn't there, but we'll sit down with the family or the caregiver, whoever has been closest with this person, and interacting with them on a day-to-day basis. And what we do is we call it a roundtable discussion, and most of the managers are in the meeting, and we really just take the time, as long as we need to really get to know everything we can about this individual that's coming to be living with us. Because the more we know, the more we can create a really personal background on them and create that care plan that's going to meet their needs. But more importantly, it's really just figuring out who they were, what they did for a living, maybe some of the hobbies they had, things that were important to them, everything from their daily cares. It could really be anything depending on the severity of the disease at that point. But it really just allows us to get to know them before they're coming in the door, because I think a lot of times you'll see people that move into a memory care community, and sometimes that first step isn't taken, and it can be the transition time can take a little bit longer. So we're trying to basically set people up for success.
Well, one of the things that I like that you said there is, and I just think back to the day, my mom was in a nursing home for 14 years, and I remember the care plan meetings. And even though the words sound nice, they're very structured, they're very deliberate, they're very goal-oriented, so that a community doesn't get tags or basically in trouble.
Absolutely.
And what I liked you saying was, your team is there, this is a meeting that's going to take as long as it needs to take to get to know this individual.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's a huge statement, and it's a lot of companies say they do that, but I don't always see it in practice, to be honest. It's like, okay, we've got 15 minutes to get this done.
Right.
Spit it out, and here's a list of questions, and it really isn't a two-way communication in terms of maybe how that history can be put into play to help the person adjust and be comfortable.
And it also actually helps the family adjust too, or the caregiver in most scenarios, because oftentimes they come in with their own concerns as well. How are they going to do this, and are they going to know that he likes this or that she doesn't do that? So it gives them an opportunity to share their concerns. It allows us to address those concerns and talk them through how we're going to manage those concerns, and be there for their loved one. I always say to, if it's an individual, for their husband or wife, the spouse obviously doesn't have dementia, but the other does. we essentially want to take that load and that burden off their shoulders so that they can come in and focus just on being the spouse again. And that's what we're there for. And obviously that's not an easy transition for anybody, but we try to ease it as much as we can by understanding the situation that they're in. And it's been really cool. I value that, and I think it's been very valuable to the people that have moved in with their families as well.
Yeah, I would think that would ease a lot of the scariness for
Absolutely.
family.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things when I go out and train, I talk about why families act the way they do, because everyone says, "Oh gosh, they're so attacking." They're they're always looking for trouble. And it's not so much that families mean to attack, but they know typically their time is limited, and so they want the best possible placement or home for their loved one, and so they want to go in with a fix-it attitude. But if they understand, that staff get their person, they don't have to worry so much about fixing.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to, because we'll find whatever we're looking for. So if we're looking for something to fix, we'll find something that's broken.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Absolutely. The other aspect of it too is we really focus on what remains and not what's been lost. So we look at every new day as a new opportunity to create a new opportunity to connect with that person. We don't want to focus on things that have happened in the past. We want to try and create new things for them and help them be successful every new day that happens. So that's a really unique aspect to it. And I value that. I think the other neat thing too, as you mentioned with staff, is I think you can see a lot of different faces from time to time. We focus and keep our memory care staff just down in memory care and in that neighborhood. We don't have some of them working in other parts of the community, so we want our residents to be able to really get to know them, and more importantly, even sometimes the families that are there every day, so they recognize, hey Carolyn, or hey Steve, whoever it might be, that they recognize those staff. And how's mom been this week? I was gone on vacation. Oh, she's been doing so great. We did this, and this, and you really give an opportunity for the staff to build relationships with the families. So
yeah, and that's so important, because if the family's at ease, the loved one's going to be more comfortable too. Because they're picking up on all that stuff from staff and family and mirroring it right back and things. So that is definitely critical. Now you had mentioned about kind of creating new moments. Do you do anything with reminiscing though? I would imagine you don't pretend like their history doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got really cool workstations and hobby stations, we call them, that we work with them. So again, going back to that personal profile that we build when they move in and working with the family. Say, for example, a gentleman who moves in and his background was construction, worked construction his whole life, and maybe he, or maybe he worked the overnight shift, and so actually he's up at night. So whatever that scenario might be, we will work with them on stuff like that. So, for example, a hobby station we have set up for the gentleman is in the this one corner, and we've got some really cool different types of tools, like construction type stuff, not actual real tools, obviously, stuff that's very safe, but it gives them an opportunity to use their hands, work with things, and even something deep down to detail that they might have done for their career, if it was something specific, if they're a welder, I don't know what the case might be, but we really take the time to figure out what those specific little things were, and yes, reminisce with them and maybe connect them with something that they did in their past. Because obviously, having a career, usually that generation for the most part had jobs they worked at for 30, 40, sometimes 50 years.
Yep.
So it's really common to have one trait that they always did. So absolutely, I think that's important, obviously, as well, to look back and see the things that are important to them.
Yep, that's wonderful. I've seen in a few communities where a lot of times they'll have the fidget blankets for some people, but I've seen almost like a fidget workstation.
Oh, yeah.
For the guys, that used to do woodworking, or, they were there, screwing something together, or, putting stuff together and taking it apart, and keeping people happy. Or, I've heard stories of, a person used to be a nurse, so they give her a clipboard and she goes around doing certain things, or it was a maintenance person, and so they're counting light bulbs, doing whatever it is.
Simple little things, though, it makes a big difference.
To empower them and
Absolutely.
make them feel comfortable. What do you enjoy the most about your role as director of marketing for Gable Pines?
Yeah, great question. The best part about my job, and I tell this to anybody I get a chance to, is when it comes to senior living, obviously people are coming to you with a need in most scenarios with assisted living and memory care, and I'm the first person that gets to interact with that family when they walk in the door. Before they're meeting with anybody else or looking down, any other avenues, they come in, they meet with me, and I have the opportunity to sit down with them, figure out what's important to them, what they're looking for, what their wants and needs are, what some of their concerns are, maybe some fears that they have going into this. So I approach it from a standpoint of really just being a resource the best way I can, whether that's just helping them think through some of the options that they have, or even in some scenarios encourage them to look elsewhere and get a better idea of what is going to fit exactly their need or their loved one's need. But being able to sit down with a family and really just talk through the options with them, and in some cases they may never move in, but I have a lasting impact in some scenarios where I'll get a call back and just say, hey, I know it didn't work out, but we just want to say thanks for really just educating us in some of the areas, and not to pat myself on the back, but it's really fun to see that happening. Obviously, even better is when the families do move in and I get to see the success stories of their loved ones. I get to tell them all about what's going to happen, and then seeing that happen, that's the best part about it. Especially them coming back to me and saying, this is the best decision we ever made, Sam. We're so happy we came in. Thank you so much for getting the ball rolling with all of this. You and your team have just done an outstanding job. And so at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do is take care of seniors, with dementia and assisted living and elsewhere. So it's really cool being able to work with the families and see the success stories of it all.
Well, again, one of the things that I see a difference in terms of just your approach is the first path you went down is what are your needs, what are your fears, what are your concerns, instead of the sales pitch of this is what we have and this is what it looks like and this is what it's going to cost you.
Exactly.
And taking the consumer and putting them in your box. Instead, you're opening the box and going, hey, let's look inside here.
Exactly. Absolutely. I don't like to overcomplicate it. Obviously people are coming because they need help, and again, it's just about being a resource to people, because I think a lot of families don't have, answers to any questions. So I try to help, pull out some questions that they may not have thought of. And again, just simply being a resource like the best I can. Well,
and it sounds like you're also gracious if it's not the right fit or not the
Absolutely.
right time. And that's huge to a family. And I know when I was in real estate, I had that same approach, and maybe it didn't work for this person, but I would end up getting referrals from people they talked to because of the approach, and just said, this is a person you can trust. And, this is a big, scary kind of ball of wax out here, and you don't think you're going to find somebody you can trust. And when you do, that's powerful stuff. Powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
We talked a little bit about your approach to memory care. Can you give us some examples of how you've seen a person with dementia react to your approaches with your Heartfelt Connections, and then maybe also how family has connected as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually had a resident, a couple that lived in assisted living together, and she actually needed more assistance and developed dementia. And so, again, obviously a care conference was done. We sat down with the family and kind of started talking to them about the options and what we're seeing and what we advise and so forth. And I think some families might think this is just them trying to get us to put her down there, get her into memory care but it's not what she's needing. And then some cases, some people are in denial about it and don't want to admit it and don't want to see it. But in this unique scenario, we sat down with the family and just expressed our concern and why we think this decision to move her into a memory care community or in this part of our building would be the best scenario for her from a success standpoint. And it wasn't received well. They weren't quite ready for that. Didn't think Mom was quite ready. But after several discussions in a couple weeks, they agreed to try it out. And we just kind of said, absolutely, let's just do it on a short-term basis and let's just see how it goes. Let us get her involved in the programming, and let you guys be available to, obviously anytime you want to come down and see her and see that happening. So the transition happened, and within a week, not only did her health turn around quite a bit, but her personality, just her ability to respond and communicate, things started changing a lot, very rapidly, actually, a lot faster than it normally might in some cases. The family eventually started seeing this and were just amazed. And it's been about a month and a half, actually almost 2 months now, and she is just doing fantastic. She's got a great appetite again. She's involved with the activities that we're doing down there from a group, but also individual standpoint. the family's been in and out quite often, and we've been talking to them and asking, there's several siblings that are involved, and they've been so receptive to everything we've been doing down there, and obviously they've come to us and just said, this has been the best decision we've made for Mom yet. Obviously, since she moved in here, it was the first one, and then since then, we just really didn't know what to expect with this transition, and obviously we were a little fearful about it. But with what we've been seeing going on with the staff and the interaction and the programming with her down there, we are so happy about it. And her husband still lives up in assisted living and gets to go down and see her still, and it's been great for them to interact with each other, obviously in the same community still, but she's getting the appropriate care she needs and is structured with the programming that we have down there, and it's just been a great change of events, if you will, for the whole family.
There's nothing better than hearing a family who's happy.
Right. I know. I know. It really is, especially when they come into it really kind of upset and not really sure what to expect, which naturally I completely understand. But you're right. It's great. It's
really satisfying, and it just I don't know. For me, it kind of cements me in the work that I do.
Yeah,
do you kind of feel that same way?
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, when we're trying to accomplish the best things for our residents and really just take care of them best we can and suggest those changes to the families. When you see what you're asking, a worst case scenario would be you suggest it and things just don't start going well. But we were very confident in the recommendations that we make, obviously, and felt like that was the best decision for her. And it's hard to go above and beyond a family's wishes. But we say we're the experts. We want families to believe that, and we're making the best decisions for them if they allow us to recommend that. And yeah, it's a great feeling when they see the benefit of it all happening.
Well, and the nice thing too is, from our conversation, it really feels like a team effort.
Absolutely,
that
it has to be.
You've got an open ear and an open heart in terms of what their needs are, because. Even though you're taking care of the patient, the resident, whatever you want to call them, you still have to keep the family happy, or it's not a good situation.
Right? No, absolutely not. It is. That is 100% accurate. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. What kind of fun things do your residents partake in?
Oh, all sorts of stuff. So some of the really fun stuff that we do within the community is like in memory care, we have a music therapist come in at least once a month that'll come in and do live music with the residents in a circle. A lot of times family members will come in and partake in that, and that's been something that we've really seen the residents that we have at our community really engage in. Obviously, you have different people at every location and doesn't always fit the needs of the residents you have, but it's been great to see that really taking off with us. We do movies, and we have a great movie theater, and for just downtime, it's great for the residents to be able to do that. We have some residents in memory care that love movies, so not all of them go down to watch a movie, but they take advantage of that. And whenever we have live entertainment in the community, if it suits them and we're able to do so, we will bring memory care residents to those live events in the community. We really engage them as much as we can with the other things we have going on within the community itself from an activity standpoint. Obviously, we're sensitive to everybody's individual struggle, and we want to make sure that we're not, interfering with their day-to-day routine. And but we approach it from an individual standpoint, and if they're able to do that, we engage them in as much of that activity as we can. Some of the really cool things we do is painting down in memory care. We have a really great memory care, or it's like a craft area, if you will, but it's set up for arts and crafts, painting. The ladies love it. We'll do manicures down there, do the ladies' nails and makeup in the morning hours, get them ready for the day. So there's little things like that that we'll do with the men. For the Olympics last year, for example, we did a lighting of the torch ceremony, which was great. So we got to walk them all down the highway and pass the torch off to each other resident. And at the end, we did a Pledge of Allegiance and national anthem, and it was awesome. So they got to kind of do a little Olympic themed thing, which was really cool.
Oh, that's neat. Now, do you have a full-time activities director? Or?
Yep, we have two in the community. So we have one that actually oversees the whole activities programming for memory care and for the rest of the community. And then we actually have one that's down there full-time in memory care. I'd say down there because it's just on the walkout level of our community. And she oversees the day-to-day individual and group activities in memory care.
Okay.
She's trained for that position. So that's really nice to have that above and beyond what the caregivers are doing with the residents too, day in and day out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's, I know, well, my daughter's an activities person, so I always like to ask what people are doing. And I know, when my mom was placed, that's just such a critical piece.
It really is.
Such a critical piece. And even when you mentioned, doing the nails or the hair, my mom loved the beauty shop. She loved getting her nails done. And I know I've been to some communities where they're like, well, that's really not an activity. And it's like, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I remember when I was when I was in healthcare with the developmentally disabled, and we'd do like group showers, and that was an activity, and we'd be singing and laughing and getting everybody just through the whole process,
right.
But it was that camaraderie. And even if one person is just getting their nails done at a time, they're still chit-chatting, and there's still that sense of peer interaction that's so critical. So that is way cool.
Yeah.
Way cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about Life Care Services and how big of a company are you, and where are you located?
So Life Care Services, not really well known in Minnesota, as most people from here know. But Life Care Services is actually the third largest in the country as far as seniors served. We've been around for 45 years, based out of Des Moines, Iowa. A little bit of everything. There's development side of the company. There's management. There's ownership. So many different things that we're involved in. But it started out as a real estate development company and grew from there. Now we're strictly just involved in senior living. And in Minnesota, we only have 2 properties. Trillium Woods over in Plymouth, and obviously Gable Pines in Van Ness Heights. But we're all over the country, so there's new communities going up left and right. Obviously, it's just a growing time right now. But it's been really a unique opportunity to be a part of this, because coming from a smaller company, which for my first 4 years, it was really great getting my feet wet, understanding the industry, and just learning so many different things. And then transitioning to LCS, which has been such a big company, had my hesitations to start off the bat, kind of like, what's this going to be like? It's like really be kind of like a corporate feeling, but it's really surprised me. They do such an amazing job of supporting the communities at the local levels, from a regional standpoint, just being resources to whether it's been marketing or the nursing side of things, or our business office managers or our activities directors. There's really endless resources for us to have access to, whether it's online or through just a phone call. So they really make it feel like a smaller company, even though we are so large. But it's been a great experience thus far.
And that's no easy feat. One of the things, that I hear out in the industry is, with the kind of the mogul sites, that everything is budget driven, and you seem to be able to keep kind of that heartfelt connection. To those you are serving, which is wonderful. And that really truly is a care culture that I don't think everybody has managed to survive that or build that.
Yeah, it can be difficult with companies, as large as this in some scenarios to, again, meet that cultural need, if you will. And every community is different location-wise, too, within LCS. But like I said, I think it really just comes down to having the resources to help us be successful. And then, obviously, from our individual management team at Gable Pines, really just building it from the ground up and striving for things that we want to see based on what the company believes in and our values, and putting the resident first. And it's, you try not to overcomplicate it. And I feel like we've done a great job at that thus far, and really having our residents be happy. We've done some internal reviews, and it's just been really fun seeing, after not even being open a year, the results that we're getting, the great positive remarks. And I get calls I'll talk to somebody in the local community outside of our building, and they'll say, I haven't even been over to Gable Pines yet, but I'm already hearing great things about it, so I'm looking forward to stopping in when I do someday. And so hearing that really warms your heart, because what we're doing inside the community is getting out. People are talking about what we're doing there, and that's important. I think that's what we've been striving to do, and it's happening.
Wonderful. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I believe, if memory serves me, is you guys do something a little bit different with your fee schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I saw when I came into this role at Gable Pines was, we were looking at setting up our pricing structure and so forth before we opened, and I saw a sheet that said fixed rate memory care pricing. I was like, wow, this is unique and different. But at the same time, I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what needs to be done for memory care, in my opinion. So what LCS has done and what we've done at Gable Pines is created a fixed lifetime rate for memory care. So essentially what happens is you move in, and for 14 days we really evaluate the resident, figure out where they're at, the care level, the needs that they have, because it really allows us to get to know them, he or she, and take the time to be with them day in and day out and figure out just how much attention they are going to need from a care standpoint, or maybe lack thereof, and it's all cognitive and no care. So after that 14 days, you're evaluated by our nurse, and essentially what happens is you get locked into one of our 3 rates, or basic, intermediate, or advanced. And then again, that rate will stay that price until end of life.
Wow.
So yeah, in my experience, a lot of things that you'll see is you move in, and then all of a sudden, mom or dad's care will skyrocket, and you are suddenly seeing a change in price that you weren't really prepared for. And how are we going to make that last? That the resources last that much longer?
Yep.
Which is a real concern to a lot of families. So this essentially takes that away by allowing families to financially plan and know that the price will never change once mom or dad moves in, and just be able to set some goals or whatever they want to put out the resources they need to accomplish that. I mean, it's just nice knowing that it'll never change.
Yeah, that because that is so spooky, and I hear that from families all the time. It's just like, oh,
yeah,
and sometimes they'll just say this went a lot faster than I thought it would, meaning both health and money.
Yep.
And what are we going to do now? And it's just very, very scary. Now, is that something that's available throughout the country in places, or is this kind of a pilot program with you?
I'm not familiar. I don't know for sure across the rest of the country. I know there are some that we have some other properties that are doing the same thing. But as far as here in Minnesota, we're the only one doing it right now. And as far as our competitors and people also in the industry in the area, I haven't come across anybody doing exactly what we're doing yet. So in my mind, it feels like it's something that we're kind of pioneering, which I'm really excited about because I get to talk to people about it as often as I can. And obviously it's not all about price, but at the end of the day, that is obviously a big factor in a lot of the scenarios. So.
Oh yeah, for people. I mean, that's
absolutely.
That's a big worry and concern, and I can see where that would make somebody just sigh of relief. It's one less wheel that they have to
absolutely. Yep, and I think that's the way it should be. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. As far as your personal vision of the market, do you see anything changing, or I know that there's a lot of construction going on right now. Is that something that worries you in terms of being overbuilt, or we keep talking about the numbers of people. There's more and more people with dementia, but yet we also hear more and more people want to stay home, and how does all that stuff weigh out?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing, that if you work in the industry, obviously you see a lot of you recognize when new communities are being built and new construction's happening. So I don't have the answer right off the top of my head, obviously, but from what my experience and what I've seen in the last couple of years, it's substantially growing a lot. And what's really happening is we're seeing the swing for the baby boomers in the next 10 to 15 years. It's going to be really coming into the senior living market. My parents are in their 60s. Within 20 years, they're going to be in their 80s. Nowadays you have people moving into senior living in their late 60s. Some people in their mid 80s. It really just depends. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think right now, like you mentioned, we are seeing a larger amount of people being diagnosed with some sort of dementia. And so you're seeing a lot more standalone memory care communities that are coming up too, which before it was always, these, continuum of care, independent living, assisted living, memory care. So it's been interesting to see that because, I think there's a purpose for these standalone communities too, because like you mentioned, we talked earlier, it's not, our community isn't always going to be the perfect fit for everybody. And I talk to families about that. You really got to figure out what's going to work for their loved one and what they're looking for. And I try to break that down for them. But there's so many different options nowadays for dementia care. whether it's an individual, smaller knit community made up of 12 rooms or a multi-level community that has 50 units. It just, you never know. But I think over time, especially in the next 10 to 12 years, I think that's going to, in my opinion, continue to grow a lot. But in Minnesota itself, I do believe it is a little bit of a saturated market. We have a lot of communities, nonprofits and for-profit, that make up the Twin Cities metro area. So I'd like to personally see that slow down a little bit in our state alone. But as long as there's a need and continued need, there will be new construction going up continually. And the thing is, a lot of people like new construction too. That's the other side of it. So not everybody wants to move into a community that's been there for 10 years when they have one down the road that's been open for 2 years. So you obviously you see that happening a lot too. So. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is one of the things that I see too, and maybe you can talk to your community on this. A lot of times I see developers building not necessarily for the person moving in, but for the families. And so there can be a lot of amenities that, they look pretty.
Yeah.
And they're costly, but they're not necessarily meaningful to the person being served. Do you see that as a trend? And do you see, how do you see your company's vision in terms of looking at that?
Well, that's where you'll see this. You'll have separate ownership companies, and you have a management company that they'll hire. And I think what's happening, a lot of developers are beginning to see that they don't have the expertise when it comes to senior living community, because you're not just building a residential rental complex. It's so much more than that you have to think about, from raised toilets to grab bars to wider hallways. I mean, there's little things all over the place that you really have to think about, and you don't want to miss, because all those little things make such a big difference in seniors' day-to-day lives. And so what happens is these developers are reaching out to management companies, which is kind of what the situation in ours with Gable Pines is. There was a development company that wanted to build on this site, and they reached out to LCS. They were also based out of Des Moines, and saw the benefit in having a experienced management company come in and be a part of that whole development process, to be the expertise, if you will, in the build-up. So I think that's definitely happening a lot more now, where instead of just, a development company and saying, hey, let's build a 120-unit building with, this, and this, and then we'll have somebody come in and manage it for seniors. It just isn't the same thing when you have somebody involved from the get-go.
Yeah.
So as far as from our development standpoint, I think anytime we're involved in a new construction from a management standpoint across the country, we have people at our corporate level that are involved in that process to help the builders and developers take some things into consideration, like those car door bathtubs that, seniors might need if they can't get in and out of a typical bathtub.
Yep.
Little things like that, helping them look at costs and break down the budget so that they aren't spending in other areas, and, allocating those resources to things that might be more important, that are senior based. So across the country, I think LCS is doing a really good job. I mean, we have 20-some properties that were under construction last year and coming into this year that are just rental communities alone that we're involved with from a development standpoint, management standpoint. So it's really neat to see that we're growing. And I think having the experience that we have throughout the years, like I mentioned, 45 plus years, plays into that and can really benefit the partnership that we have with the developers going into new construction.
Yeah, I just think it's so important. I know when I was in real estate, I helped get the first Rambler, off the ground in the parade. It took me like almost 2 or 3 years to convince my builder. And the public, was screaming for Ramblers, and they really thought builders didn't know how to build them anymore. I mean, it was just that kind of just shocked me. And then working with another developer, we were going to do a one level, and everybody was doing these, high ceilings and whirlpool tubs, and a lot of things that people really weren't going to utilize. They didn't value over price, and so we cut back and we just made it simple, and that development just blew out of the water. Everyone's like, well, why? And it's like, well, because we listened to what people really want, and I think I think sometimes with senior housing is, as beautiful as they can be, sometimes we just have to explain why we're doing what we're doing. That the high ceilings echo. Yeah. And if we have them, now we have to have, panels up there to absorb the sound, because sound is really a big issue with our clientele. Yeah. Just real simple things. And and then everyone's comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we don't do the education that needs to be done. One of my personal pet peeves.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I think you make a good point
out there. So, well, I am loving, what Gable Pines is doing with their Heartfelt Connections, and really impressed, with your work. And even when you were talking about, they come down for the movies. I mean, even when we were doing His Neighbor Phil, they were coming down going, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, people seemed very connected. Staff seemed really engaged, and they seemed very engaged with staff. So it wasn't a staff resident thing. It was a friendship thing.
Absolutely.
Is what I had witnessed when I was there. And to me, again, that's just a critical piece. It should be about being part of a community, not being cared for, not being less than, but just an intricate kind of piece of the machine, of the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you there. Is there anything else that you want to share about Life Care Services, Gable Pines, or your Heartfelt Connections, or maybe something we missed altogether? No,
I think we did a good job kind of, going over everything as far as the program goes. It's a person-centered program that we're really proud of, and it's really fun to be a part of the environment and talk to people about it, and because there's aspects of it that really excite me. So I appreciate you letting me able to share my end of the story. Some of our other staff can be a little more excited, I guess, if you will, than I can sometimes, but that's because they're working with them every day, and I just get to talk to the families about it. So I usually like to try and pull in as many people as I can when we're, when it's a memory care inquiry and we're working with the family, and just try to educate them as much as possible and invite them back for an event or something too. So, it's usually something that doesn't take place overnight. I just try to be a resource to the families and go through the steps with them and just let it be a process on their time, instead of it approaching it from a sales standpoint and trying to pressure anybody into anything, because that's the last thing you want to do, especially with people in a dementia situation, is, they're already, struggling with the decision if they should do it or should they not do it. And, you just want to try and help them get through each day, and when they're ready, they'll be ready. Exactly. I love that attitude. Yeah. And that pace that allows them to be a family in process and not be under pressure. And granted, there'll be those times where it's crisis and it's crunch time, and you got to make a decision here, right? Because if you don't take it, someone else will, or if you don't take it, they're going to be out of the hospital. Right. I know. So, you definitely have those days. Wonderful. Well, now the best way to get a hold of you, Sam, is you've got a Facebook page called Gable Pines. Yep. You've got a phone number people can call, 651-829-3171. That's 651-829-3171. Or you can reach Sam at marketing@gablepines.com. That's marketing@gablepines.com. Or you can just go to their website, gablepines.com. Thank you so much for being with us today. My pleasure. I really appreciate you having me, Lori. It's been great to be talking and be a part of the show, and getting to know you a little bit more has been awesome. So you're a great resource. I love talking about what you do, and it's been a real pleasure to be a part of this today. Well, thank you. And don't forget to tell your mom hi. I will not do that. Okay. For our listeners who are new to Alive and Social, you might want to check out one of my cohorts. Rachel Perrin is the culinary director for Kowalski's Market, and she does a podcast called What's for Dinner Tonight. It's only 10 or 15 minutes long, but it's perfect if you're busy and you don't know what the heck's for dinner. She can help you out really quick. You can also find delicious and seasonal menus on Kowalskis.com. Just go to their website, KOWALSKIS. Again, I just want to invite you all to be part of our dementia-friendly conference and cruise we're going to be doing to the Caribbean November 11th through the 12th. You can just go to alzheimersspeaks.com and you'll see it right on the homepage. You can click there for more information. So excited. This is really going to be a fun cruise. We have 4 people with dementia who will be joining us as speakers: Harry Urban and Michael Ellenbogen and Lori Shear and Mary Reed. And then Cindy Lazinski, who is
Kind of the leader of a grassroots group in Colorado, and myself will be the two professionals. And then Kathy Schoaf is our travel agent. You do have to book through her in order to be part of the conference. But Kathy has a great experience, too. She was an RN and has now been a travel agent for years. So we are really looking forward to this. And I believe we're going to end up having a music therapist join us as well. We're just getting more and more people all the time. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do memory cafes. We're going to have kind of dementia chats on the cruise. There will be learning. We're going to do a screening of His Neighbor Phil. And we're going to be doing some devotions and coffee clutches. And yet you'll still have time to relax and rejuvenate and go off port and explore a little bit too, if that's what you're looking for. Some of our last shows, again, all of our shows are archived, but our last show we just had Stacy Dorick on, and we talked about chair yoga, and she just came out with her new book, and she's got DVDs, and she also has free video that shows you how to do chair yoga and the benefits of that. We also had Mindy Bolton on talking about Shay's Way approach to dementia. Her grandma had dementia, and so she started a method herself. And then we had Zuka on, who has a wonderful new book called Wonders in Dementia Land, and she is just a hoot and a half. And her book is just, you buy it, it'll just perk you up immediately. One last plug for Dementia Chats. Our last one we did was how to communicate with people with dementia, how they want us to communicate with them. And they come up with some really interesting comments and ways versus what sometimes us as professionals or family members think is the best way. And so you'll learn about their senses and how they change and how their emotions and behaviors are affected by their surroundings and how that affects their daily life, which then affects our daily life if we're the ones caring for them. On the blog, you'll be able to also get a discount on the 6th edition that's just rolling out here in April on the 36-hour day. You'll be able to get 20% off. And there's a couple of new trials there. You'll find some articles along with a couple of poems that were just posted. With that, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Just remind you to tap into what we call your memory chip, which teaches us to kind of let go of control over our task list, even though it has to be done, and put in front of us 3 simple things. Are they safe? Are they happy? Are they pain-free? Which will then typically teach us to do our tasks a little bit different. Have a blessed week, everyone. Bye now.
Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the 2 most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30 or 40 plus years, retiring on Friday without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.